My man, my man, uh, my man. Um, Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, whatever time it is for you right now. Just know that you are locked in onto the point with the king. You guys know what to do. Go find us Apple, Amazon, Spotify if you don't want to see our lovely faces. Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, which hopefully where you're watching us. And we still have that giveaway once we get up to 750 for that dope Raptors sweater for y'all out there. Um, so keep supporting us. We enjoy it. The more you support us, the more we consider you family. And us, all the guests that come on here, we all consider each other family, especially my man, all the way from the East Coast, the coach, Tim Roach. How are you doing today, brother?
Doing pretty good, man. How you doing?
I'm all right, man. Can't complain. No complaints whatsoever. Um, Actually, I don't have any complaints. I kind of want to gloat here for a minute. And I think you should relish in this as well. You know, a couple of weeks ago, if you guys go check the archives, um, since the hiring of Darko, Tim and I did speak about the culture and the change for the Toronto Raptors. We also did speak about it after the departure of Nick Nurse, and we've noticed it might be not you. I know you might look like him. I saw you on Murdoch Mysteries the other day,
Wasn't
but
me.
what are you, Shaggy? It wasn't me.
I know. It's just thinking of that.
um, but we did say that with the change in the culture within the coaching, that maybe we can see some players excel and some like getting more time, getting more minutes, getting more reps, and we've seen it come to fruition. It might only be two preseason games, and some of y'all out there might be like, "It's just preseason," right? But it shows that there is a system that is going to be implemented. And now, Coach, would you like to take a little bit of time to shine in the spotlight and say, "I told you so"?
Well, I told you so. No, I think with a new coach, the front office had in mind that they wanted to play a different style of basketball from the heavy ISO ball that Nurse and his staff implemented. And, you know, bringing in Darko, I'm sure they looked at where he's been as a coach. I mean, the guy was in OKC with
Yep.
Scott Brooks and Billy Donovan, with KD, with Russ, and Steven Adams, some of those guys. Good program to be in. Darko then was in Phoenix with Monty Williams.
Yeah,
Good Phoenix teams that they had. Then he was in Memphis just recently, last couple of years. We know how good Memphis has been. So everywhere that this guy has gone, certainly players have developed and teams have won. Maybe not so much a championship, but there's always been development of those individual players and of the team. And I think what Masai and Bobby and the front office staff was looking for was a coach who has that kind of experience, guy who knows what it's like to compete and win to a degree, but more importantly, development. And as you know, last season, we just didn't see enough development. Now, I will say, I don't know how much I can put on Nurse for that. Some of it goes to Nurse, but at the same time, I do question kind of the bench pieces that they did have.
yeah.
This
What did you
season,
do?
though, they have a few more bench pieces. Yeah, what did I do? Yeah, I couldn't look at the bench much, so I overplayed my starters. But no, I mean when you could look down on the bench and you see a Gary Trent or you see Jalen McDaniels, you're going to see Grady Dick, I think, for a while, and
Like, we like Dick.
he's a pretty good shooter.
No,
But
please keep going. Please keep going.
yes,
That
yes, no, but I think it's important that Masai and Bobby bring in someone who can change how this team plays offense. Because you watched the games last year, they were kind of tough to watch at times, like how they played. It was a lot of ISO ball. It was Fred shooting up a lot of shots. There were times that Pascal did. Now, mind you, Pascal, in a sense, had to, but we saw a lot of, Messiah called it selfishness. I think he did see some selfishness on the court last year. And we needed an identity change, how these guys play. Look, it happens to all the great teams that go through it. Like Pat Riley had those great Lakers teams of the 80s, won 5 championships, and they moved on from him. The only two that I've seen survived in the last probably 20 plus years, Greg Popovich, Eric Spoelstra.
Ulstra. Yeah.
That's it. Nobody else has survived how they coach or how they play.
Not even Doc Rivers.
Oh,
Yeah.
Doc did not survive.
Yeah. But Coach, you and I as fellow coaches, former fellow coaches. Now, here's my take on this one. Right? What I've seen from over these past 2 games, it's only 2 games, ladies and gentlemen, so don't get your panties in a bunch. But there's I've noticed a lot of openness for some of the players that we have not seen, like you just touched on the ISO ball last year with Freddie pretty much controlling the ball for basically 14 out of 24 seconds on the shot clock, or just hoisting a shot up from half court for no reason, as opposed to getting the other players involved. But now with this whole new coaching staff, let's not just give it to Darko. Let's give it to everybody. Let's even give it to my boy Jama, right?
Absolutely.
Like the way and all of these coaches, I've looked them all up, and they've all been very, very protagonists about developing younger players. Last night I saw, well, not last night, when they played Taipan, I saw Malachi go. He went up with the left, and then he went to the right, midair. He did a Jordan, right, on an open layup, and I thought that was amazing, right? Like they're allowing these kids to fly and allowing them to go. Now, what do you think the impact is of this new coaching staff to allow these kids to play, and what it can do for the team in the long run, since a lot of these players on the Raptors roster are very, very young. They're old enough to be my kids.
I think Brady might be old enough to be mine or something like that.
Oh, wait, you gave up some dick for something? Anyway, no, that joke right itself.
No.
In all seriousness.
Yeah. So look, a new change. Masai made this clear. They want to see more development. So this new philosophy, basically, what Darko was saying, let's try to play 10 guys a night, because we saw 7 guys a night last year. Look what happened. Pascal led the league in minutes. That's not something you want your star player to lead in this league. I think we had 3 to 4 starters basically averaging over 33 minutes a game last year. That's not sustainable for a season. And Nurse wanted them to play such a frantic style of defense. We're not going to see that this year. This year, it's going to be more of a conservative style defense, because Darko and his coaching staffs, I'm guessing, influence early will definitely be on the offensive side of the ball, making sure you have your half-court offense implemented, making sure that their transition offense will be ready to go for this season. And like you said about your guy Jama, who's the assistant coach on the Raptors. I love Golden State. I love the way they play.
Yeah.
And anytime you can get a coach from Golden State, typically the offense of that team gets better. Mike Brown went to Sacramento last year to become the head coach. He was with Steve Kerr for 2 or 3 years, won championship. Sacramento had the highest offensive rating last year in the league. 119.4. That was ahead of Boston. That was ahead of the Knicks. So that's big time. If you can, and Jama's been there for a couple of years. I think he was on that championship team that won 2 years ago. And I heard today in one of the media availabilities about how they kind of run some of Golden State's offense, which is so key. So we have a lot more offensive mindsets now, I think, on the roster or on the coaching staff, especially Darko, especially Jama. And there's this emphasis on individual development as well. So just by playing 10, 11 players probably a night, a new way to play offense. And look, I know there are only 2 preseason games. We had 34 assists in the first game. Yeah, 34 assists against Sacramento. And then we had 30 assists, I think, last night, or against the team from New Zealand, I think. Sorry, it was the opposite. 34 against the team from New Zealand, 30 assists against Sacramento. Golden State led the league last year in team assists at 29. We would be leading the league right now if the league just stopped right there at 32 assists per game. We were 23rd last year in assists at 23 and a half per game. And that's why you get to see an ugly offense as well. So the hope is this year, let's make the brand of basketball more appealing, not only to us watching it, but to the players in this 0.5 system that they're calling it.
Okay. Sorry, I'm going to go off script here because you just said something there that I would like to touch on. Do you possibly believe that with Messiah and Bobby's Vision 6-9 and the 0.5 system, right, that maybe last year Nick Nurse wasn't too compliant with that system, hence his departure, and now that they're free to do that and let Darko take the reins as a Euro player, because European players, they're not all about selfishness, they're all about winning, right? Because they're more hungry, let's face it, right? They're not making $330 million contracts, right? Do you think that will have an effect on the Toronto Raptors, especially considering we are one of the most international teams in the league? Not that we are the international team in the league, I'm talking about our roster, right? And at the same time, you touched on it earlier, Greg Popovich and the way he ran his team, right? Him surviving, he would have those guys play 20, maybe 30 minutes a game at the most, and spread it towards what you just said about the 10 players. Do you think this is a potential like unlocking for the Toronto Raptors based on the talent that they have?
Oh, absolutely. And in the case of Nurse, you know what you don't, you know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. Maybe he's just not as familiar with the 0.5 system. Maybe he just didn't feel he had the right players to play that, because it does certainly help when you have the right players who can implement that 0.5 system. And basically this 0.5 system, I'm just reading an article now, Monty Williams brought it to Phoenix in 2019, 2020. Who was his assistant that year? Darko was, right? And the idea behind the 0.5 system is it asks for players' instant reaction times and quick decision making on the court. So in essence, you have half a second to either shoot it, pass it, or drive it. And that's the idea behind it. And it's just so the ball doesn't stick. What happened last year with the team? The ball stuck.
Thank you. That's what I want to ask you. Like, we've only seen a microcosm of the last 2 preseason games as of this recording, but you've seen me in the group chat. I've always said, even last year and the year before during the Raptors games, pass the ball 3 times and you're going to score. And now we're seeing a lot of passing and a lot of movement, right? Now, you and I as coaches, how do you see that? Do you see a lot of back screens? You said you only got half a second to make that decision, right? But you also have the players and the talent that can make that decision and have the ability to take this team to another level, right? What are your thoughts on that as a coach? Like, if we break it down to the X's and O's, shoot, man, I'm sure you and I both can pull out our clipboards and just go at it. But like on double back screens, on like cuts around the corner, coming to the elbow, like we spoke about this before with it opening up Gary Trent, which he went relentless on in that first preseason game against Sacramento, which I thought was great. And ladies and gentlemen, we said it. Okay, go back in time, go Marty McFly that. But what are your thoughts on it as a coach? Like, what kind of play style would you draw? Like, I know you already talked about 0.5, but your play style, if you were still coaching.
Well, kind of just to get back to your first point that you mentioned, my high school coach once said, you can't stand around and watch a basketball game. And he's right. And what I see on the court so far with this team, I don't see a lot of guys being idle. I see a lot of cuts, back cuts, screens. I see DHOs, but not doing a DHO with 7 seconds left on the shot clock, which I saw a lot last year, which is just, that makes no sense because now you have to play iso ball after that. You don't have time to move it. You basically get to shoot it. So, the way that I see the play style so far, if I was coaching, it is always good to have everybody touch the ball. Ideally, if you can. It doesn't always work out. But I always remember what Shaq said once. He said, give me touches because I will go in and do the dirty work for you on the boards as long as I feel involved in the offense. So
Yes.
Pirtle is not Shaq. I am not comparing that. And I think Pirtle would still go in there and do the dirty work regardless. But they're running their offense now around a lot in the high post with Pirtle. It's like they've given him the keys to the city almost. How much I've seen Pirtle with the ball, especially in that first game. I've never seen him touch the ball this much. So they really want to utilize him in the high post. And I'm sure the goal is, if he's in the high post and the big guy's guarding him, that's going to leave probably the bottom of the basket more or less a bit open for back cuts for Siakam and Barnes. And I'll even say Chris Boucher. I said
Back
on the
cuts,
last show,
swinging, right? Cutting.
Yeah.
Oh,
I said in the last episode, I wasn't sure like where I saw Boucher in the rotation. I did say though he's consistent. What you see is what you're going to get from him. So
yes.
he's a very good cutter, especially a back cutter to the rim. I'll give him that. So, I mean, this kind of offense, if Pirtle is in the high post or if it's Precious or someone, and Boucher's making those back cuts, or OG or Scotty, whomever it may be,
Or if you have
that can really help
because
them.
he loves to take those alley-oops.
Yes. And
That's
even you can put you can put Koloko kind of in the high post where he is tall, and I saw him make some pretty good passes last year.
I'm talking about him cutting and taking the alley because
same thing.
Opening up the key.
Yep.
Yeah, please go on.
It's kind of like there's a lot of pace and space in this offense too, but it is going to be utilized, I think, with high post action, and then there's going to be a lot of back cuts, and then probably. I actually did see a play, I should say. They had Scotty at the high post on one side, and basically everybody cleared out. Everybody was on the left-hand side of the floor. Just Scotty was on the right-hand side of the floor, and he caught the ball in the high post. And every time you call for clear out, they want you to take advantage of the mismatch. And he had one on. This is when they played Sacramento. So I think they're going to try to utilize that as much as they can. Like you said, we have a lot of guys who are 6'9", and that does mean that you're going to have some smaller guys on you. And he's going to take advantage of those. Year 3, he's big and he's strong. He's got to back guys down, and he certainly can do that and should do that more often.
His time to shine, man. Like,
It is.
honestly, this kid is the keys to the future for the Toronto Raptors. If you guys want to bring another player, LOB, right back here in the city. Coach, before we head out of here, I just want to give you the ball, right? And anything you would like to say out there to the people, like, I'm pretty sure we said some things coaching wise that probably went right over their heads, but some people actually caught it. So if there's anything else you'd like to say to the lovely ladies and gentlemen out there, the Toronto, the To The Point family, right, that's watching, if there's anything you'd like to say, please, brother, the floor is yours, my man.
Alrighty. No, I'm excited to watch this team this year. I like the moves that they actually made back in July. I was really happy about them getting Dennis Schroeder. What I've seen so far in the 2 games that he's played, I'm not sure if the numbers really show it, but there's one thing that he has not done yet that I've seen that made me really happy. He has not forced up a shot. Every shot that he's taken is in rhythm for the most part, unless it's like there's a 24-second shot clock that maybe he shot up. But I've watched their offense so far. I see nothing forced,
You know what it's
which is
like?
good.
You know, as a coach, sometimes we're yelling from the bench, "Oh, get that shot!"
Yeah, we saw that a lot. Well, I saw too many 3 for 12s last year, or 4 for 17s and stuff like that. The idea of this offense is it's not so much if I have a good shot, but do you have a great shot? And that will be probably, or that is the most efficient shot. So some guys' numbers in this system might go down a little bit, but the assist numbers at this rate, if they're getting around 30 assists per game, they're going to lead the league most likely in assists. That's quite the change from being 23rd in the league to potentially number 1, if any indication of the first 2 preseason games will somewhat translate to the regular season. And I definitely think if you learn to play this 0.5 system more, then you're going to get better at it. And you're going to know 20 to 30 games in what this team is, because there's a lot of narratives around this team as well, with the whole contract situations with Pascal, OG, and Gary, Scotty's, I guess, developmental questions, stuff like that. He's super talented. This is a big year for him. And, just the shooting around this team as well. The shooting was terrible last year. And I think they've added a few more shooters, especially you get the best shooter in college basketball on your team. Jalen Daniels, a pretty good shooter. Schroeder was good when Darko was his assistant coach. When he was in OKC, he was shooting like 38, 39% from 3. And I've noticed so far early with Schroeder's shot, there's not as much of a hitch in it. It looks more one motion. Sometimes I've noticed last year when he played with the Lakers, the form kind of is slightly robotic. What I'm seeing lately in the last 2 games, it looks a bit more smoother.
Like a flow.
Yeah, it's more in rhythm. And
That's
I've
what
just
you and I
been,
as coaches would always take somebody aside, put them on that one rim, and make them take 400 shots in a row. Yeah, but go on.
yeah. And yeah, I'm excited for the team this year. It was time for a change, especially in coaching, but also just kind of offensive and defensive philosophy. Like we watched this team do so much defensively last year, and credit to them, they actually were able to do quite a bit by just playing 7 guys. I think that sometimes gets lost in translation. Like I actually think they, for the most part, um, were buying in to what Nurse was trying to do. And now it's going to be on Darko as the rookie head coach, the new guy. Because if you don't have player buy-in, good luck.
See,
So you got to have
right
players
there,
to buy in.
player buying in. I've seen some clips, I've seen some pics. Darko sitting there while a player is just practicing by himself, just sitting there in the corner, watching, spending his time. You know, because let's face it, ladies and gentlemen, the most expensive commodity in this world is time. We never get it back. And speaking of time, thank you, Coach, for spending your time with us
Of
over here
course, this is great.
on To the Point. I hope you're back for the season preview, which is
We'll try to
happening
be.
very shortly. Um,
We'll try to be.
right? It's up to you.
Yep.
Hopefully we can have a bunch of guests on and everybody could just talk their smack. Um, Coach, I really appreciate you all the time, every time you come on. Right? I think we should just start naming this show, like Arturas said, To the Point with Coach. But no, honestly, this was a great conversation, and I hope you, ladies and gentlemen, you To the Point family out there, have taken something from um, genuine basketball minds and not fair weather fans that just talk a lot of shit. Um, Coach, do you have anything left to say to anybody else out there? Like, give a shout out, even to your mom or whatever. I don't know.
Give a shout out to my family in Nova Scotia and my friends and stuff like that. Absolutely. Good. It's a good basketball province, certainly. And it's growing every year from what I can tell, which is great.
Thank God Canadian basketball is growing every year.
It is, man.
I
It
did
is.
that for a while as a kid. Anyway,
Yeah, yeah. I stopped about grade 10.
no, I stopped when I was 24 years old. I
Nice.
graduated. I was this tall. I was like, anyway, but that's another story. You guys don't care about my personal life. Coach, where can the lovely ladies and gentlemen find you?
Oh, you can find me on Twitter. I'm on typing CoachRoache. I should come up, stuff like that. And if you want to see some tweets during a Raptors game or a FIBA game with Canada basketball, it's probably what I'll be doing while watching the game. Always appreciate dialogue from people too, as well. You don't have to agree on everything. That's basketball. That's certain, and that's life as well. But always good to have good, cordial conversations about basketball.
It's always good for people to have opinions. You guys can find me
Absolutely.
at King Hussein on Instagram. Ladies, don't let this ring fool you. Okay, I'm still single. um, you guys can find me at To the Point. Of course, this is my home. This is where I live. You guys can find me. You will find me on What the Facts coming up on YouTube. That's another podcast. Apple, Amazon, Spotify, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Remember, we're doing that giveaway for the sweater. It's a nice hoodie. So thank you guys for enjoying us. Thank you, Coach, for joining me today for this, right? It's much appreciated. And so on behalf of myself, Coach Tim Roach, all the way from the East Coast, my man Arturas, out there in Lithuania. Do I have to call him? I ran out of long distance minutes. And myself, and for you guys out there, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, good night, and peace.